I understand that that's what you're doing now. Several state agencies are looking into what happened at this raid. Any information back yet?
No, they're still doing their work. It's going to take a few days for sure. The first thing we wanted them to do was less of an investigation, more just support for the families and the children. You can imagine these children totally traumatized, right? These are some of them very young children, totally traumatized. I mean, they've been attacked like they were in Fallujah. And
Is that what you're hearing, that they are, that you're getting back, that they are traumatized, the children?
that's what well, first of all, we start out imagining that that is what happened because if you look at the building and look at any of the video that Kristi Noem has now posted, if you were a young child in that building sleeping and all of a sudden agents are coming through your door, they've got big weapons, they're grabbing people and taking them out, and you get zip tied, and maybe your grandfather gets zip tied too. You can imagine what that would do to a young child.
Well, so clearly Stephen Miller is using footage from Chicago as part of a vast national propaganda campaign. I wonder, though, are you or Illinois law enforcement getting any briefings at all from the Department of Homeland Security or anyone else in the federal government about what they're actually finding in raids like this one? It seems to me you'd want to be able to coordinate with them in some sense. Do they talk to you at all before they do these things?
Greg, they have not called me once. Not once. I mean, we literally have almost no information. When they called out the National Guard, when they federalized our National Guard, they told me that I was going to get a call. This is the first time, by the way, no calls from the President of the United States, no calls from Kristi Noem about any of this, no calls from Greg Bovino. He's the officer on the ground with CBP who's in charge of all these agents. Who is just seems to be a terrible human being. And on the day that they were going to call in the National Guard and federalize them, the Illinois National Guard, I was informed by someone from the Department of Defense that the Defense Secretary, Hegseth, was going to call me at a specific time. So I said I cleared my calendar to make sure that I would have time to call him, that I would not miss the call, and waited 2.5 hours. I waited for the phone to ring, never called. I obviously kept my phone on me the entire rest of the day. They never called the next day, still have never called. And it turns out that Secretary Hegseth was actually at a football game taking part in a push-up contest. And this is all while he's calling out the National Guard on my state and unwilling to call me to even let me know that that was going to happen.
Well, push-ups are important. It's important to do that to keep in good health, Governor. But I do want to ask you, though, have you been trying to reach out to them in any sense, like very recently, and just to get a sense of what's coming next? And are they answering your calls? What's the state of the communication?
So unfortunately, they don't seem to want to respond to my entreaties, and I have said, many times in public, on television. Clearly, the president is listening to what I'm saying on television about what it is that we want. What we're getting, the way we're getting any information from them, has been either by people in their departments leaking things. Maybe they're people from Illinois, or maybe they're people who care about Illinois, but they've been leaking things. That's one way. A second is that I have some staff or people in our departments who regularly work with people in other departments in the federal government who just, knowing those people, have called to say, what do you know? And can you give us any information? So I think that the combination of that has given us a little bit, but what you said is 100% accurate, Greg. If they would let us know, we're not looking to impede. I mean, I want to impede what some of the things they're doing that are breaking the law, but we're not going to stand in the way of them executing federal law. We can't. We literally are prohibited by law, and we follow the law here. But what we could do is make sure that the neighborhoods are safer and that the officers themselves might be safer if they weren't just surprising people in a neighborhood and, showing up with these unmarked vehicles, wearing masks, banging on doors, disrupting people. Because you know what's happening? Spontaneous protests. It's not, we have a couple of blocks, 2 blocks across from an ICE facility in Broadview where people are showing up to protest every day. But in a neighborhood, when these cars, descend on and these people in masks, people in the neighborhoods are, first of all, they're naturally freaked out. And second, they have an extremely negative reaction to it. They love their neighbors, they love their community. And so they're yelling things at the officers like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I know those people, that kind of thing. And some of that could end up with something terrible happening, violence or otherwise. We would like to be able to prevent some of that just by our local law enforcement knowing what they're doing. They don't do any communication with us. It is truly an invasion of the city of Chicago, even without the troops being called up. And now, potentially, those troops will be showing up shortly if we don't win in court.
Well, Governor, the president has called for your arrest. I just want to ask you this pretty bluntly. Do you expect to be arrested soon?
I do not expect to be arrested, and the President of the United States says a lot of crazy things. I genuinely think there is something wrong with him. I wish that his family would intervene because I do think he needs mental health help, and I don't think anybody around him that works for him is going to do that because they're benefiting from his failure of mental health, his dementia. I wish somebody would help out the President of the United States. Meanwhile, he says a lot of crazy things. He doesn't have authority to arrest elected officials or really anybody where you don't have any, example of a crime being committed. And I find it ironic that this guy, who's a 34-time convicted felon, is saying that I should be jailed. I've never been accused of or convicted of or, gone on trial for anything. He's the guy who's done that so many times and cheated, by the way, in civil court. And this is just, I don't take it seriously. Other than I think the man has so much power at his fingertips because he's president of the United States that the people around him might try to take it upon themselves to just make something up and come after me or Gavin Newsom. I know they've mentioned that they might jail him or the mayor of the city of Chicago.
Well, let's talk about that. Do you think Stephen Miller is whispering in Trump's ear that he should start arresting Democrats like you?
Well, he's saying it out loud. I don't know why he isn't whispering in the president's ear. I mean, he's basically claiming, and the president repeats these things, but Stephen Miller is claiming that, Antifa is involved somehow. Believe me, come to Broadview, would you, to these protests? There's no Antifa there. I mean, nobody's revealed themselves to be Antifa. I'm not even sure that, what Antifa, would look like, but they haven't revealed themselves or caused any mayhem there. There are people who've broken the law, by the way, in those places, but it's usually like their refusal to step out of the street, when they should be. But Stephen Miller has essentially demonized any opposition, any opponent of the President of the United States and made them seem like they're terrorists. He's used that word. And he's called, Democrats part of that sort of terrorist network. But it's ridiculous. And Stephen Miller is a dangerous individual on his own. He's very dangerous when he's got the power of the president backing him up.